Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nurmi, you may continue with direct examination.
Thank you. Ms. Arias, before lunch, I think, when I spoke to you about returning from from Utah to Wairika, you were still driving your rental car, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you return that back in Redding where you got it?
Eventually I did, but not on time.
Okay. You say eventually. Do you recall when you were supposed to have it back versus when you did get it back?
Yes, I was supposed to return it the same Friday, and I ended up returning it on the Saturday instead.
Okay. And why were you a day late? Was this because of the time you spent with Ryan Burns, or? Yeah,
I overslept, and I underestimated the time that it would take to get from West Jordan to Wairika or to Redding. So if I would have cut over to Redding to drop the car off at the airport, it would have made me late, even later than I was for work. So rather, I just took the highway around the northeast side of Mount Shasta and went straight to Wairika because it was faster. But I called the car rental place first to make sure I had permission to do that.
Okay. So when you went to Wairika, back home to Wairika, what car were you driving?
From that trip, the rental.
Okay. And then you went back down to Redding and then back home again.
The next day I went to Redding. I think it was my sister-in-law that drove me to the airport and then back to her house where my car was parked at my brother's house.
Okay. Now, based on the timeline we've been talking about regarding your time in Utah, do you recall what day your shift was back? And this was at Casa Ramos, right? You're still working there?
Yes, Casa Ramos.
Okay. And what day was your shift on? What day were you scheduled to work, I should say?
That Friday. I think I was supposed to be there at 4 or 4:30.
Okay. So you say you went to your grandma's, changed, and went straight to work, right?
Yes.
Okay. And because of that schedule, you didn't have an opportunity to speak with your family before the end of that shift. Is that accurate?
No, I was in a rush. I didn't have an opportunity. I just ran home. I was already late, so.
Okay. And you were living at your grandparents' at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And based on what you told us before, you had, at this point in time anyway, a pretty good idea that Travis is dead. Is that right?
Yeah, it's something I wasn't accepting in my head, but obviously I kind of knew it, but I wasn't, facing it, if that makes sense.
You wanted to deny that reality, right?
Very much.
Okay. When Well, let me ask you this. On this point in time, did you have any knowledge of anyone else knowing of Travis's death?
No, as far as I knew.
Were you thinking, or were you fearing that that might happen soon?
Yeah, I assumed it was going to, and I was definitely fearing that.
When did that fear become a reality?
I think it was early in the morning on June 10th, sometime after midnight. Dan Freeman called me, and I saw his name on the caller ID when he was calling my phone, and I thought that would probably be the phone call that I was dreading, and I answered it, and he told me that something...
Based on that phone call, did you come away with the understanding that Mr. Alexander had been found dead?
That wasn't definitively said, but I assume that was the case.
Did you said not definitively said, did you seek out other confirmation of this?
Yes.
And whom did you contact?
Through Dan Freeman, I learned who was there, and I began calling. I called his friend, Travis's friend, Brent Hyatt. There was no answer, so I called. I don't remember if I called Zach Billings, his roommate, but I was talking to his girlfriend. She wouldn't say much, and then I was able to get Bishop Layton's phone number. That was the bishop to Travis's ward. I was told he was there, and by then it was like 3 a.m, and I called Bishop Layton, and that's when he told me.
Told you that Travis was dead?
Yes.
How did you react to that news, at least him telling you of that news?
Objection relevance.
Approved.
When you received confirmation from Bishop Layton that Travis was in fact dead, how did you react to that?
I just remember I was in the living room of my grandmother's house on my phone, and I doubled over and started sobbing really hard, and I couldn't stand up.
Prior to you learning that information, hearing that information from Bishop Layton, was there still a part of you that was hoping that he really wasn't dead, that he was just injured?
I was hoping the whole thing wasn't real, that it was just a nightmare, and that, of course, I was hoping none of that had ever happened.
And when you heard that from Bishop Layton, that's when you realized that hope was dashed. Is that fair to say?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Was that hope that it was a nightmare gone after you talked to Bishop Layton?
Reality set in a lot more than that. I still, to this day, I wish it was just a nightmare. But I wasn't able to just deny it as much in my head, or it was more like facing me squarely and
Can you describe, apart from facing you squarely, could you describe those emotions that caused you to double over?
It's more like things that were going through my head